Of Namita Gokhale's Paro. It was today in 2024, read it way back 1984. At India Habitat Center, the author is here to reintroduce her book here at the Gulmohar Hall. She's busy out there signing books. Signing books at the back. Paro turns 40. The author herself, Namita. That's the author signing the book. Namita herself.
Indian literature in 1984. I am so pleased that Namita Gokhale, the author, is here with us, an old friend, and Amrish is here to talk to her about it. But before that, Namita said, "Will you introduce me, please?" I said, "I'd do it with pleasure. Of course I will." So I'm going to try and keep it a little brief. I could go on and on, but I will try and keep it a little brief, if I may. We all know Namita very well indeed as an author of many, many books, both fiction and non-fiction, and editor of many other books as well. But of course, we also know that she is, apart from this, has been responsible for Kitab Nama, which is a wonderful program with hundreds of episodes about literature, and thereafter the JLF, the Jaipur Literary Festival. She's a co-founder and co-director of the biggest literary festival on the planet. So I think the list of her achievements is absolutely astounding. I'm very happy that she asked me to do 2 of her audiobooks, which I really enjoyed doing. But I had to confess when she asked me to come here that I had never read Paro. I'd read her latest, just finished it as soon as it was released, Never Never Land, but I had not read Paro. So she hastily sent me a copy and I read it in one go. I kid you not. It was read in one go and I couldn't put it down. And I was astounded again by the fact that this was written in 1984, and I can imagine of course I was aware that it had created a sensation back then, but also that it is sensational still. If you read it, and it's not just because of the frankness, a wonderfully memorable voice for the character of Priya. I'm not going to say very much more about the book because we're going to have from the author herself, I'm sure, a lot about the book and its creation. Just so they'll say that she's from Lucknow also. And rapacious, the stuff of legend. Wandering through the world of privilege, decadence, and Scotch whiskey that rich Indians inhabit, she is observed constantly by the acid Priya, eternal voyeur and diarist, who identifies strongly with the heroine of her favorite novel, Rebecca, and vicariously follows the melodrama of Paro's larger-than-life. Full stop. Priya herself is in love with her boss, the irresistible BR, sewing machine magnate, and the housewife's friend. Paro inevitably marries him, to Priya's fury, but he is merely one among the whole string of admirers, of Paro that is. Bucky Bhandpur, test cricketer and scion of a princely family that appeared 40 years ago. I'm going to hand over this conversation to Namita and to Amrish. Thank you very much.
Welcome you all to this very special session of Suitably Booked. As the enthralling Paro turns 40 this year, we are delighted to have its author, Namita Gokhale, with us this evening. Namita is one of India's best known and most loved authors, a prominent writer, festival director, and literary activist. She's the author of 23 works of fiction and non-fiction, spanning various genres, including novels, short stories, Himalayan studies, mythology, and books for young readers. Her pioneering work has earned her great acclaim over the last few decades, including the Sahitya Academy Award in 2021 and the Centenary National Award for Literature by the Assam Sahitya Sabha in 2017, quote, for her literary contributions as well as a service to the nation in supporting and showcasing literary talents and creating a literary environment in the country. End of quote. She is the co-founder and co-director of the famed Jaipur Literature Festival. This evening, Namita will be in conversation with Ambarish Sathwik as they discuss the
promising in all departments of writing, but I was extremely eager to write. The civet smell of recent sexual activity.
The front row, the presiding deity of the audience for me. Alka is sitting there, Raja is sitting there, and I always thought I'd be an artist, but I never got down to that. And then I was in college doing well, studying hard, and then Chaucer hit me because I just found it incomprehensible why we were studying Chaucer. I mean, it didn't make any sense to me. And they had this new syllabus there on modern Indian literature in Hindi, and my Hindi wasn't great, but I wanted to do that one. And so I just started studying for it because I found out from Delhi University, and they said you just fill in. He says his skin was as soft as a soft. His skin was as something as a soft boy, and they're not.
When Thakkar meets a fever dream after one too many gins, but I'm curious. So you can see Paro is the reclining figure on the sofa. Priya is standing there. And the man who's looming behind Paro is DR. He's the star, he's the male star of the novel. Okay? And he's standing in all his bald glory. He thinks he's looking like a matinee idol. He's got his shirt unbuttoned all the way to his navel, revealing a swath of flesh that should best not be revealed, I'm curious, the men who read Paro haven't understood this. This is the alpha male. This is the Lothario and seductor of Mumbai who's got women falling at his feet, eager to be, to fornicate with him. I mean, you have to give us some psychoanalytic service here. What are the psychological underpinnings of...
Well, I'm not going down this road at all. I love the cover. And just remember that he was short, he hadn't begun to go bald, and I remember his face in the novel. And he was very rich. And he lived in Marine Drive. And he just was the sort of person fell in love with. I have to tell you about my photograph though, because there was a very nice photograph of him which my husband had taken, and he felt very, very hurt when this picture, which was taken by Harper's for a long interview they did, and I thought I looked suitably serious here. So I said, no, I want this photograph. And Carmen Callell, who was the editor at Chatto at that time, she said, Namita, you're looking a bit like Solzhenitsyn with a beard. But I think I like both my photographs, and I love the fact that Priya is on the spine of the book, because she is sort of the spine of the story. So I think we should have a vote, if you don't mind. Right? I promised my editor who's sitting in the last row that I won't say this, but since tact is not my quality, I read this book again after 35 years. And I was not going to read it, and I skimmed through it, but I never can go back to anything I wrote. And I realized it's not that great a book. It's okay, I've written better books, written vastly better books. But this is the book that was lucky enough to survive and to reach out to people and all that. So I'm not charmed by the book at the moment, but it has some very good passages, and I guess for a first novel it worked. But I'm completely puzzled, and I hope some of you who read the book now are not puzzled about why it's sort of having its moment in the sun again. Though it has been in print for 40 years. So I'll begin here. It's somewhere in the middle of the novel. And so it said, this is Priya, who's the narrator, and she loves Paro and she hates Paro. So she says, I got quite sick of all this hammy melodrama. One day I asked her outright how it was that she managed to manipulate people the way she did. I mean, I always did my duty and worried about other people's feelings and never even got a thank you in return. Everybody just took me for granted, even more for granted than before. And here she was, twisting everybody around her little finger. It was just emotional blackmail, I said. Oh no, she replied. It's part of being a beautiful woman. It's a full-time occupation and much harder work than it seems to be. But, nodding sagely, it has its rewards, I must confess. I wished I was the kind of woman who could say things like that. But she was a faddist at heart. I remember her silly, short-lived enthusiasms, which all of us were supposed to fall in with. First, there was the yoga classes, which she made Lennon join along with her. She would insist that he wake up early in the mornings and drive her down to India Gate lawns, where, according
That's
to Lennon, they had to
Mrinal Pandey.
undergo all kinds of gruesome physical contortions in public. Her enthusiasm was almost a primitive exhibitionism, actually. She would show off her skills to all and sundry, quite unmindful of the suitability of the occasion. There was the chic cocktail party which an industrialist friend of Lennon's was hosting at his farm. This was 40 years ago. So written maybe 44 years ago or something. But Delhi was Delhi. Even Paro was quite excited about it. She dressed to the hilt in a dull green and gold South Indian silk, which reflected the color of her eyes and somehow. And she wore a lot of old-fashioned jewelry as well, and flowers in her hair as well. And it's much more demanding. And people take a long time to read it. And they say it's taken us, I don't know, 1 month, 2 months to read it. And many people have got through it. So, I mean, I'm happy with that as well. It's wonderful if somebody is reading it slowly. And it's wonderful if you can do it in one read. My new novel, Never Never Land, which somehow picks up so many little cues and stories from Paro, people read it fast. So I think it's the pace of the book and the plot and the voice that reflects in the pace in which people read it. So I think
Kumauni resilience. And do you think, the question seems to ask, do you think it has something to do with
should I go there and read it?
No, I think,
It's a nice question.
I know it is, I'm just trying to, would you say that your Pahari or Kumauni identity and deep love for the mountains is at the heart of your work, all your work? Does your stoic resilience to overcome so many personal and professional setbacks, does it come from the indomitable Kumauni spirit? Would you say it is deeply liberating or
empowering?
empowering?
Well, I wish I could say yes to all those things, but I feel a bit of an imposter. I live in Delhi. I more and more live in Delhi. I go less, I keep thinking this year I'll spend more time in the hills. I go there 2-3 times, but there are so many Kumaunis who sort of have this great romanticized love but live everywhere else and look at the past. And there are so many people who live in the hills through the year and have adopted the life there. Some of them with a degree of fakery, some of them with complete
Mrinal
commitment. So and my, somebody like Mrinal's mother, Shivani, there have been examples of so many strong and tough people in the previous generation and in the generations around me. And sometimes I see that in my grandchildren or in one of my nieces and nephews, that spark of total Pahari woman anger, or Pahari woman whatever, but I'm sure this is there in so many other places, just I notice it more. So I'm very reluctant to take on this whole mantle of Kumau on my head and be some. Yeah, I love the hills and it's become a habit to write about them because my memory and my background and all the things I've seen there in the past have given me enough material to do at least another 3 or 4 books. But my recent novel, Never Never Land, at least looked at it the way it is now, as an ecological and cultural disaster, sort of. So I don't want to be like this great Kumauni writer, no. It's one of the things I write about. It's one of the things so many people who love the mountains write about, and each of them writes about it in their own way. Across the mountains, whether it's in the northeast or whether it is in Himachal or wherever, because that topography and that landscape has so much to give to any story. So I hope that's an okay answer.
There's another question which is, are you a feminist writer?
Well, no. I'm not a feminist writer. I wish I could write more about the minds of men, but I've written because I think men and women are equally hurt and disadvantaged by life and the other genders in between. I think I am a woman and so I have sympathy for women, but sometimes I also have even deeper sympathy for the hurts of men and the sexes in between. So not that anything is right. But yes, I do have a lot of strong women characters in my novels, and I like strong women, and I encourage anybody I know to be strong, in whatever capacity I can. In my fiction, I'm not writing from an ideological perspective about what should be or what could be. And of course I observe the hurts of women, and of course many of the women characters in my novel have shown an extraordinary resilience, but I haven't set them up as stereotypes. I mean, it's like that quote, nothing human is alien to me. So I'm not trying to write about the social perspectives, sexual perspectives, the gender perspectives. I mean, I wish I could write the viewpoint of dogs and cats, and hope to, and people's gendered identities are such a complex subject. I mean, friends like Ambarish who writes about cadavers and is not a part of it. And I'm not saying the wrong thing and hurting the wrong people. No. But I just write about characters who influence, who enter my stories, and they may be most unfriendly. I mean, Paro is hardly a feminist icon, though people like Sagarika Ghosh have said she is the first feminist person who gave freedom, and she wrote a beautiful article saying that clubbing me with Kamala Das and absolutely releasing Kamala Das, Parveen Babi, and what's her name? Zeenat, and she clubbed us all together. I was pretty thrilled by that. But I don't know. I mean, I just I wrote one novel in a male voice, and it didn't work until I brought in a feminine voice as well, which I did later. But I like Priya at all. And Priya's voice came to me when I was writing it. And so it was one of those fortunate situations where I could pick up her voice and her voice stayed with me throughout. I could be this slightly malicious, very acute, very sharp woman who votes.
Anointed as a Penguin Modern Classic. Penguin Modern Classic is a designated work. It's a designated work of enduring literature which has been recognized for its cultural and literary significance. And I think Paro finds a place in the pantheon of enduring literature, perhaps because it's not just because of the sexual humor and that it's titillating, but also because it indicts. So let us raise a toast to Paro, and let's hope it will continue to leave readers aroused, affronted.
I have a quick disclaimer. I don't really believe in canons. I'm extremely suspicious of them because they are constructs of so many dubious things and some real things. Let's talk about it in the next life. Let's see how much longer Paro lasts. But I'm glad that a book that was ahead of its time has found its season again for however long.
Thank you all for joining us. Will you be signing copies?
Yeah, I'll be signing some copies.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, very much.